In today's video, we're covering the extremely important question, should you still buy XRP in 2025? Many people put astronomical price targets on XRP, which I always find extremely ridiculous when seeing it because it doesn't make sense at all. XRP is probably the cryptocurrency that sparks the loudest and clearest debate online. Some people believe it has the potential to revolutionize cross-border payments, while others think it's a completely lost cause. The crypto community as well seems pretty divided. In today's video, we're going to explore both sides of the coin and see if XRP is still worth a buy. We're going to cover what XRP is and who's behind it, where exactly it stands today. We're going to cover the bull case as well as the bear case to see both scenarios, and you can decide for yourself in which camp you belong, but it's always important you understand both sides of the story. First of all, it's important to distinguish XRP from Ripple because that's what many people don't really understand. XRP is the native asset of the XRP ledger, which is a blockchain. And with native asset, I mean the specific coin that you need in order to transact on that blockchain. It is a blockchain that was founded in 2012, so one of the oldest blockchains, with the clear aim to move money faster as well as cheaper. And it was built as a clear alternative to the Bitcoin network, which until today is quite slow and clunky. And currently XRP has a total supply of around 100 billion XRP, which are pre-minted, meaning there's no inflation, all the coins are already in circulation. Ripple, on the other hand, is a private company which was built by some of the XRP ledger founders. So basically some of the founders of the blockchain decided to form a company. And this company is built to provide financial products for banks and payment providers. In the end, a private technology company, and congruently, the valuation of Ripple is not the same as the valuation of XRP. Again, Ripple is a company trying to make a profit, and in the end, is closely tied to XRP because Ripple is promoting financial products on the XRP ledger blockchain, which in the end boosts the valuation of XRP as well because more transactions happen on the blockchain. But fundamentally, there are two different segments, right? Let's quickly look at where we stand for XRP today. XRP is the fourth largest cryptocurrency in the world, behind Bitcoin, Ethereum, USDT, the largest stablecoin in circulation issued by Tether, and then number 4 we have XRP. XRP currently sits at $2.17 at the time of the recording, and the market cap is $131 billion, while the fully diluted valuation, which basically includes controlled supply, is $217 billion. And this means a whopping 40% is in locked supply, or basically concentrated, which is crazy to think about because there is so much value in XRP tokens in such a controlled environment. And this is leading us over into the XRP ownership structure. 42% of XRP is held by Ripple Labs, basically the Ripple company that we just talked about, which is basically used for funding operations as well as an escrow account for the founders and employees of the company. The second biggest holder is Chris Larsen, the founder, and he basically has a long-held stake across multiple wallets. And then Binance also holds a lot of XRP, in total 2 billion, worth 2% of the total supply. And in total, so basically these three owners, in addition to the rest of the top 100 wallets, control 68% of the circulating supply. And this is truly unheard of in cryptocurrency. For comparison, the largest known and verified holder of Bitcoin is MicroStrategy, with 650,000 Bitcoin held, which just equals to around about 3% of the circulating supply, compared to the 42% here on Ripple. And if you add up the top 100 wallets, even 68% of total circulating supply. You have to be aware of, and we'll come to the negative consequences of that later on in the video. XRP has had a spectacular price action. So basically for XRP, we can see that back in the day, back in 2023, it was ranging between 65 cents and 40 cents roughly. And basically whenever it touched 65 cents, it sold off. Whenever it touched 40 cents, it was bought by a lot of buyers. And then once the hype and the true altcoin season, this market cycle back in November, after the Trump election happened in 2024, we saw a massive increase in the valuation of XRP basically shooting up all the way from 50 cents to $3.50, which is an absolutely astronomical return of 500, almost 600%. So 6x, that is absolutely massive. Then we had a deeper correction, and now we're sort of moving again in a range between $1.80 and $3.40. That is basically where we can see whenever we touch the lower band, which happened, most recently back in November at $1.80, a lot of buyers step into the market. And once we're at the top here at $3.40, a lot of sellers step into the market. A good rule of thumb for the current market environment is, to be bullish at these lows here at around $1.80 and be bearish at the highs of $3.40. With the price action in mind and basically this range that we're currently working with on XRP, let's specifically discuss the bull as well as the bear case for the future valuation of XRP. For the bull case, we have a couple of important points. So the first aspect is that the SEC lawsuit was dropped in favor of XRP in mid of 2025, and this was a huge bullish signal because back then the SEC alleged that selling XRP via a centralized exchange was basically a crime of selling an unregulated security. And this is crucial because this was related to the distinction between XRP and the Ripple company, if XRP would be basically stock of the Ripple company. But this clear distinction that we covered earlier was also what the SEC found to be the truth. So that is really good for XRP, and that held price down for a lot of time. Secondly, XRP probably has the strongest community and fan base in the cryptocurrency world, while to traditional investors, who buy real estate and stocks, community and fan base might sound irrelevant for an investment. In crypto, it matters a lot because hype and sentiment and narrative drive a lot of prices in crypto, as it's also just such a small asset class in total compared to other asset classes like equities or real estate. So strong community and fan base is definitely prevalent with XRP. We also have massive industry growth projected, XRP specifically targeting blockchain payment processing. So basically that the XRP ledger is used for payment processing, which in the end increases the amount of transactions that happen on the blockchain and increases the demand for XRP even further. And lastly, the stablecoin, which is issued on the Ripple blockchain, RLUSD, has a strong market cap growth, now sitting at around about the 60th biggest cryptocurrency and has a market cap of over $1 billion. So there are a lot of aspects why you can be bullish on XRP if you combine it, especially with technical understanding and looking basically at the $1.80 range as a support level, then you can definitely tie into this bull case from a fundamental perspective. However, there are a lot of aspects for the bear case that we have to consider as well. So for the bear case, first of all, we have a strong holder concentration. Basically, the top 100 wallets hold 70% of the supply. This is what we saw earlier. As a rule of thumb, strong holder concentration in crypto is not something you want because you cannot control other market participants. Secondly, valuation doesn't match fundamentals. And the fundamental valuation in crypto is more difficult to argue than in equities. In equities, you have clear and proven systems like the PE ratio, the PB ratio, and all other, financial metrics that determine the health of a company, like free cash flow and many other things. However, in crypto, it's a bit more difficult because coins are not businesses that you buy. Those are currencies that you can use on a blockchain. What I mean with that, when it comes to fundamental valuation, you can actually compare one crypto coin valuation with another. So when I look at the top 10 crypto coins here and I compare XRP, for example, to blockchains which also offer very fast and cheap transactions and also handle payments, then I come to the right hand section here where XRP is valued at over $200 billion fully diluted market cap in comparison to BNB's, around about 125 billion, and Solana at the moment currently at 80 billion US dollars, or Polygon, which is just valued at around about $1 billion US dollars. So here you can see XRP has by far the highest diluted market cap compared to any other blockchain that also handles payments, or in the case of BNB is, very fast and cheap blockchain. And if we drive that point home further, if we look at the total value locked, this is generally a great metric to understand. And the total value locked basically is how much monetary value is currently on a blockchain. And for Ethereum, we currently are sitting at $70 billion, Solana at $9 billion, and BNB at 7 billion. Those coins we saw on the last slide as well. And if we look at the XRP ledger, again, this is the blockchain where XRP runs on and is the native asset, is sitting at number 43 with just $72 million in total value locked. This is tiny compared to any other major coin. And remember, the valuation of XRP is astronomical, and it's number 4 when it comes to the market cap, so the valuation, but number 43 when it comes to the total value locked. And if we look at transactions for the XRP ledger, we see a similar story. On the left hand side, we can see currently we have round about 14 million weekly transactions on the XRP ledger blockchain, and round about 8 million of that is related to payment processing. If we compare that to other blockchains, to Solana, for example, we see 500 million weekly transactions, BNB 100 million, Polygon 39, and Ethereum 11. And this shows that with the exception of Ethereum, all the other blockchains have a lot more weekly transactions. And if you think about it, the valuation of a native asset, meaning an asset that you use for paying for a transaction on a blockchain, is highly dependent on how much weekly or how much transactions run over the blockchain. The more transactions, the more transaction fees, and the more demand there is for the token because people need to pay for the transactions. And here XRP is also tiny compared to Solana, compared to BNB, compared to Polygon even, which has just 1/200th of the market cap of XRP. And even, there, Polygon is higher in weekly transactions by, 3x, and higher in TVL by around 15x. So this just shows, in my opinion, that fundamentally there is a disconnect for XRP between valuation and fundamentals, because we can see a lot of other blockchains which have a lower valuation, again, from an investing perspective, more attractive, but better fundamental data. And the third topic is rising competition. Again, XRP, or the thesis for XRP, only plays out if Ripple, the company, builds a lot of great financial products that banks and payment processing companies use. So what this means here is we have a lot of rising competition when it comes to payment processing. If you look at this article here, for example, a lot of giant companies, Circle, which is the issuer of the second biggest stablecoin USDC, Google, and Stripe are all planning to launch their own stablecoin blockchains, which are aimed at payment processing. Again, stablecoins offer a great option to settle payments and transactions in the future because stablecoins are stable and pegged to the US dollar, which everyone knows and everyone uses. So this trio of financial and technology giants are exactly lining up to launch their own products in the exact niche or target market that Ripple has been positioning XRP. And lastly, we already had a strong return this bull cycle. And if we look at the charts, we can see the strong range between $1.80 and $3.40. But what we also have to keep in mind that if the $1.80 range lows do not hold, there is basically no liquidity down to the $1 even 50 cent level because there hasn't been a lot of transactions. And we can expect that if XRP breaks this level to the downside, there's going to be a lot of downside volatility because a lot of investors who invested in this range that we're currently in are likely looking to sell because there is a lot of downside risk. So we have covered both the bull and the bear case for XRP. And for me personally, I'm more on the bear side because I just feel like the valuation is not justified for XRP. And again, valuation doesn't match fundamentals, and we have a lot of risk when it comes to the strong holding concentration. And this just all shows me that there's too much risk, in my opinion, to invest long-term in XRP, and the risk is really outweighing the potential return here for me. So with that said, it's important that you make your own financial decisions. This is not financial advice here, just an unbiased review of a potential bull and bear case for XRP. I'm very interested to hear your opinion about XRP. Please write it in the comments and let's discuss where we see XRP heading next. Cheers, see you in the next one.